Literally, think about this. In the last 8 years, the black-white achievement gap has closed 5 points in 8 years. At that rate, it will take 258 years to close an achievement gap. And we wonder why our country can't compete. We're wondering why people of color, whether they're black or Latino, are left on the sidelines when we have this dynamic happen in our country. I just do not feel that's acceptable in Sacramento, and I feel like we need to do something about it. And I think today is going to be the first step in us taking a step forward to closing that achievement gap and creating an environment where we have great schools. So I'm going to talk about Stand Up really briefly. So Stand Up is an initiative that started here in our community because I think we have an opportunity to mobilize a grassroots community. I'm not interested in elected officials. I'm not interested in the government back in Washington or the governor here dictating what happens in our community. It needs to come from you folks in the audience, the grassroots. We need to say enough is enough, and we need to be the ones to make a difference in our community. So we have 5 core beliefs. The first one is, I think you guys have your sheets of paper. The first core belief is this, that kids come first. At the end of the day, I challenge every school board member, every educator in this room, that do not make decisions based on the interests of adults. Make choices that are in the best interest of children. And if we do that, we can look ourselves in the mirror and be very proud, regardless of the outcome. And I guarantee you, these kids will not let us down. They will exceed all of our expectations if we make choices that are in the best interest of kids. The second core value is this. Great teachers matter. We've got to create an environment where we have great teachers in every classroom. We can't be blaming teachers. We can't villainize teachers. We got to hold teachers accountable. We got to give them the support they need. We've got to professionally develop them so they can reach their potential. We've got to recognize and reward our teachers. Now, if teachers aren't making the cut at the end of the day, then we've got to figure out some other profession because our children can't afford to have teachers in the classroom that can't teach them. The third belief that we have is that parents deserve choices. You know, let's face it, in Sacramento, California, you can go fast food. You can get Big Mac, you can go to Burger King, you can go to ice cream, get 57, 51 flavors. In schools, we don't have as many choices as we think we should have. And I think parents deserve choices. I think charter schools are not the panacea, but they're a choice that families should have. Competition is a good thing. Why should school districts be able to function without being challenged with someone else to determine whether or not they're doing a great job? Amen. So we want to make sure that parents have choices. And again, charter schools are choices, but they should have choices for good quality schools. If it's a comprehensive school, great. If it's a thematic learning school, great. If it's an art project service learning school, so be it. But our children need choices, and our parents need choices of good schools. I would love for Sacramento to be a community that has a portfolio of great schools for our children to choose from, and our parents. Here's what happens now in Sacramento. If you live in a bad neighborhood, you're trapped, and you have to go to those failing schools. If you have money, you can send your kid to a private school. Or if you have money, you can move to a good neighborhood. And if you know how to work the system, you can use somebody else's address and send your calling it like it is, ghetto park. You got to speak the truth. So think about that. But if you don't know any better and don't have the means, you're trapped. Your kid is languishing in a poor, failing school. That's not acceptable in Sacramento. And we need you folks to help change that trajectory for our young people. Anybody in here hear about the parent in Akron? Yeah. A parent in Akron, African-American lady, had a couple kids, and she wanted to make sure that her kids were going to good schools. Because her neighborhood school wasn't very good, she had to okey-doke the system. She falsified where she lived so that her kids could go to a good school in a good neighborhood. Now, those kids went to that school for a couple of years, and then finally somebody found out that they weren't supposed to go to that school. This parent got arrested. In jail.
10 days.
Because she's fighting for her children Come on now.
Yeah.
We can do better than that. And then we say we want parent involvement. Then parent get involved, and then we don't like the way they get involved. The fourth core belief we have is investing in what works. You know, we can debate things back and forth. All I would say to you is look at the track record. And if things are working, let's figure out how to replicate and create more of them. And if things aren't working, you give them a probationary period. And if they're still not working, you got to close them down. So we got to invest in what works. People talk about a silver bullet. We have things right here in Oak Park that are working. PS7. Elementary school. PS7. Raise your hand if you have not heard of PS7. All y'all have not heard of PS7. An elementary school right here. You guys heard of PS7?
Capitol Heights.
Capitol Heights? So, I could talk about PS7, I could talk about Sac High, I could talk about a handful of schools in our community that are doing well. Let me just give you PS7, because I think it highlights it best. PS7 has 95%, it's a charter school, run by St. Hope Public Schools. It has 95% African American kids. 80% free and reduced lunch. You guys holding those two? What society says is that kids that are poor and kids of color that I just described cannot do as well as their counterparts who live in more affluent areas. PS7 has the third highest test scores in the whole city of Sacramento. You remember this thing that we called an achievement gap? You guys remember that? There's actually a closed achievement gap at PS7, and now it's reversed. These kids at PS7 in Capitol Heights are actually doing better. So what is the formula? You know what it is? It's high expectations for kids, it's parent involvement, it's great teachers, it's longer school day, it's a rigorous curriculum. Isn't that rocket science? Why would we not have this in all of our schools? That's the question. Why would we not have this in all of our schools? Why would we not try to replicate Dr. Fortune, Mrs. Fortune, Little Fortune over there? They're replicating PS7. And you know what? Everybody's trying to prevent it from happening. Why in the world would you try to prevent kids from learning? You know why? Because people are concerned about adult issues. They're making decisions not based on the outcome for children, but are what in the best interest of adults. Let's be a community that says enough is enough.
Amen.
We don't have to say that other people are bad or good, but let's just do what's right for children. That's what Sacramento can be known for. And the last one is this: measure and reward results. You guys know this. If you measure something, it moves. If you care enough and if it's important enough, you're going to measure it and determine whether it's successful. The moment you do that, you create an environment of accountability. California, 300,000 teachers in California. We can't tell you who the top 10% are or the lowest 10% are in California because we don't differentiate. We're not using data to determine. The firewalls are finally being broken. Thank goodness for that. But in California, we can't tell you who the best and the worst teachers are. Wouldn't you want to model what the best teachers are doing? And then wouldn't you want them to share it with the teachers who aren't quite as good? Like, come on, like, it makes no sense. But these are the things that are dictating our education system in our state. And we've got to say enough is enough in that. So we've got to break down these barriers and race to the top, creating a competitive environment that we can finally use data to determine whether teachers are teaching and kids are learning.
Amen.
And when you bring up these topics, people get mad at you. How in the world can you get mad? What teacher in the world would not want to be told whether they're teaching kids or not? Ineffective teachers.
Amen.
Because every other teacher would want to know, am I doing my job or how can I get better? If you're not doing your job, then let's professionally develop. Let's rush in there and give you the tools that you need to be successful. And if you are doing a stellar job, why would we not recognize you or reward you and give you merit pay based on what, why would we not differentiate the way we pay teachers based on the success that they're having in our classroom? There's no way we're going to be competitive internationally, nationally, statewide, or locally if we keep doing things the same way we've been doing them. And to me, today is the day that I think Sacramento has a chance to do things different in our community.